What's up, everyone? How you guys doing? Welcome to my channel where we hang out. As you all know, my name is Dapo Ibrahim, and I am a filmmaker, entrepreneur, artist. Um, I do a lot of things. I don't want to start going into all that details. But yeah, today, um, first I want to bring to your attention. I know it's been a while that I have made a video on this channel. So it's because I've been very busy with my upcoming films. I've been writing script, I've been directing, I've been doing a lot of things.
Lot of
So,
things.
so part of the things that I've been working on is the script. So I have this web series I've been working on. It's titled Time Share, something about the memory. And I have this guy that has a memory dysfunction, something sort of, and is a great protagonist. But one of the things that I was going through is finding a good or the right antagonist for him, and the antagonist in film is the person, or antagonists in film are those whom we refer to as villains. Like Thanos in The Avenger, like the T-1000 in Terminator, like you know villains, Joker in The Dark Knight, Bane in also in The Dark Knight 3. So the villain in general, they are the antagonists, and the antagonists are they're very relevant in the film. You know, the truth is, the stronger, the deeper, the more dysfunctional your antagonist is, the better your movie is, and the more effective your movie protagonist is. So if you have a very, very mean, evil, rude, knowledgeable, perfect knowledgeable villain, it makes your hero, especially when they conquer the antagonist, it makes your movie protagonist, that's the hero in your movie, it makes them very um very powerful. I use the word powerful. It makes them very powerful. It makes people love them. It makes people want to be them, because one of the reasons why we look at movies, because we admire courage, we admire bravery, we admire people that take risk on the screen, because we all know, taking risk is a very difficult thing because you don't know the outcome, you know but in movies, we see people do things we cannot do. In movies, you could see a guy jump from one building into another building. You could see a guy jump from a skyscraper into like a swimming pool. And those are things that we can't do in real life. And the reason why we love movies, um, you know, the reason why we love movies, because we see these things that we really want to do. We do them in our imagination, but we can't do them because of the risk involved. I was watching Fast and Furious, was a Fast 8, and Vin Diesel was driving this car in Dubai, and he drove the car from one building, one skyscraper, into another into another skyscraper. And when you think that was all, and it just drove into another skyscraper. It was just ridiculous. These things will never happen in reality. But the fact that we could see them, on TV, it makes it very, 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 interesting, so to say. So while I was writing this film, I came to realize that the hero is just the hero in the movie. You understand? The hero without a strong protagonist is just useless. And I was watching like Christopher Nolan, and he said he spent more time, creating the antagonist before even creating the protagonist. Um, Another director that I was listening to once said they write the ending of the film before they even start the beginning. They know what will happen in the ending, which means they can see all those obstacles your protagonist will overcome. So the beautiful thing about film is, and these are things that you start realizing them as time goes on. And before, in my mind, I'll be like, I want to write a film. Okay. So when I go out there, when I start writing it, and then I know my protagonist, I know my story, and then I start writing it, I realize the story doesn't have enough depth because I did not work on my antagonist. Your antagonist can make your story very powerful. You can have the dumbest protagonist, and the moment you give him the strongest antagonist, the moment that dumb ass protagonist overcomes, skillfully or strategically or stylishly overcomes that intelligent antagonist, it makes your movie just powerful. It just makes it like, whoa, we didn't see that coming. So over the last few months, I've been realizing the most, the important thing about movie antagonist. Very, very profound. Oh, by the way, let me know where, if you guys are joining, click the thumb up. Let me know where you guys are joining from. Comment where you're from. I'd like to know you guys. I love knowing where you guys are from. While we're sharing this thing. So I'm sharing the story with you so that I don't know if because this whole world, everything we do revolves around storytelling. Um, we all tell stories, be it you are in the advertising, or you're in the radio business, or you're in the whatever business you find yourself. We are all in the business of storytelling, and it's always inspiring when you have the story of someone that you know has this obstacle and overcame the obstacle. Now, the obstacle is usually the antagonist. You know, the obstacle is always the antagonist, and that is something that you always want to make sure you have well laid out, well planned out. In fact, the last few months have learned that I should focus more on the antagonist of my story than the protagonist, because the protagonist is someone that is just there. The movie revolves around him. But the person that will help bring out his values, the person that will help shape his world, the person that will help make the protagonist better is actually the antagonist. It's just like if you look at the stories, the Bible is a book of stories. Now, if you look into the Bible, in the story of David and Goliath, for example, if you look at the story today, you will realize that there will never be a David without a Goliath. And the only reason why David became relevant is because Goliath was way bigger, more powerful, rude, and cocky. And, you know, Goliath was just the opposite of David's strength. David was small, he was a boy, he was young, he was weak, he couldn't even lift a sword. They put the armor of the king on him, it was too weighty, it was too heavy. But he confronted Goliath. That's bravery, that's courage, and that's why we love the heroes in movie, because they always show courage, right? So if you look into the story, you realize that Goliath single-handedly puts David on the map today. The only reason why we all read about David is because he confronted Goliath. All right? That's the only reason why we love David.
That's the only reason why we love.
All right? Just doing a quick audio check. But yeah, look at Jesus, for example. Jesus was what? Betrayed by Judas. Now, that's another form of antagonist because Judas has been a disciple of Jesus and has been part of Jesus. So, for one of your own to turn against you, that is something very, very significant. You broke bread with this person, you traveled with this person, you shared food with this person, you shared your ideas with this person. This person, you know, had convention, had communion with you, and then they end up betraying you. That is another form of antagonist. So, um, the things I've learned, I'll be sharing it with every single one of us, and those are the traits um, good antagonists have in movies. And I will be sharing this thing with every single one of us. So, the very first trait that I realize that makes antagonists very powerful is their motivation. Their motivation. Your antagonist needs to have a strong, valuable, profound motivation that drives them. Now, let's take Thanos, for example. What was his motivation? Thanos technically wants to end hunger in the world. He wants to end poverty in the world. He looks into the world and he sees a lot of people dying and suffering, and he wants to end their suffering. That was his motivation. And that was the reason why he believes so much in what he was doing. So the motivation makes your antagonists strongly believe in what they do. And it's very, very mandatory. It's very, very necessary. Your antagonist needs to love what they're doing because if they love what they're doing, then they will only go deeper. Just the same way you have your protagonist and they're trying to do something and then the antagonist shows up. The fact that the moment your antagonist shows up, your protagonist will push harder, develop more courage. The same thing has to happen in your antagonist. They need to also push harder and develop more courage when they get that pushback from maybe the protagonist. They need to be strong willed, they need to be highly motivated, they need to believe in what they want to do with every fiber of being that they have. It's very, very mandatory that they do. Uh, so the motivation is key, you know, very, very important. I have a couple of notes here that I will read to us. Okay. So no character is going to be compelling. That's the antagonist now. No character is going to be compelling or interesting to read about if they don't have a strong motivation for why they do what they do. This is especially true of antagonists. If your antagonist is just evil for the sake of being evil, they are not strong, they are not a strong character. No one is evil just for the sake of being evil unless they are Satan. Or possibly if they are really mentally unstable. In that case, you might be able to redeem your antagonist with some of the other things on this list. But if you're an antagonist in the same if if your antagonist is a same person, they are going to need a believable motivation, not one you can agree with, neither, necessarily, but one that's believable. So, for instance, maybe your evil king wants to conquer a bunch of the countries around him because he feels that his kingdom is too poor to sustain itself and he needs resources of other countries. Maybe your jack abusive character is abusive because he was abused as a kid and he didn't have a healthy example to follow. Do not use this as an excuse to make a bad boy character who's a jack to your protagonist, but ends up totally, fine in a relationship with her because he's a tragic, because he has a tragic backstory, and that makes everything right. Just don't, unless you can do it really well. Just don't, unless you can do it really well and give him redemption aside from his backstory. Whatever the case, give your character a believable motivation. All right. So the second thing I'll be sharing with us is make your antagonist intimidating. All right. Make your antagonist intimidating. It's very important for your antagonist, for your protagonist, most especially, to find your antagonist intimidating, and so as well your viewers, because movie making is like a dream. All right, you need to understand that when people go to watch movies, it's they're snapping out of reality and snapping into this, like in the movie Matrix, whereby you get jacked up into the system. That is what happens when people go see a movie. They are willingly, willfully, they take themselves out of reality and go into this matrix world of the movie universe. Okay, so if and in movies, what we do is we are selling emotions. All right, so if your protagonist feels fear, your audience need to feel fear too. Okay, um, and that means your movie is being real. So another thing you should take note of, another trait you should take note of when you are creating your antagonist, a strong one in this case, is that make sure your antagonist is very intimidating. Your antagonist has to be supremely intimidating, to the hero of the story, to the protagonist, to people around, and to the audience as well, so they can feel your movie. An antagonist to your main character, an antagonist your main character can defeat with a snap of their finger is not strong antagonist. An antagonist your main character only loses to once is probably not a strong antagonist. Make your antagonist somehow stronger than your protagonist, whether that's physically stronger, mentally stronger, more knowledgeable, it doesn't matter. Or else there's no real threat. There's no tension if the reader knows the protagonist, or if the viewer knows the protagonist can defeat the antagonist whenever he wants. Okay? So the same thing we're talking about. Look at Terminator is a very good example in this case. Arnold is T-800, and the villain in Terminator 2 is the T-1000. So the villain Arnold is confronting is a version that's um it's a more modernized version compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Terminator 2. And you can see that the T-1000 had so many powers. It could adapt, it could transform from one shape and form into another shape and form. Visually, we could see all those kind of things. So every time Arnold confronts the T-1000, we're like, what's happening? Because there's tension, because we know that this thing can take any shape or form. It could take the shape and form of a ground. It took the shape and form of a wall. It took the shape and form of so many other people. So there's so many things to just look into. Changes in skin color, hair, complexion. So the question even changed into Arnold. It changed into Arnold himself. So the T-1000 is something that when you see it, you're just scared, because it can just snap the life out of even Arnold, not to mention the human beings in the film. So make your antagonist very, very intimidating. All right. And the third thing I will share with you, that I took note of, is um, the third trait I'll be sharing with you is to make your antagonist human. All right. Make your antagonist human. As mentioned earlier on, in the motivation, section, chances are your character is not a remorseless robot who exists solely for the purpose of destroying the world. They are going to have hobbies, people they care about, even if it's only their sibling or parents or something, things that make them happy. Give them relatable characteristics, maybe even make them redeemable. Give the reader something that tells them your antagonist. Give the viewer something that tells them your antagonist is not solely there to be an obstacle for the protagonist. He has feelings and he has a life and passion, just like the protagonist. So, this part is basically saying make your antagonist relatable, make them human, because when you make them human, it makes people care about them. Even because when you create character, you want people to just feel an emotion towards them. When people care about them, they understand why they do what they're doing. I remember when I watched Avenger, and I saw Thanos, and I heard his reasons, and I saw him break down, and you see Thanos, you see him cry. It's like, oh man, this is good work. This is good work. So um when you have an antagonist that's human, it makes your audience, it makes them care about them too. It makes them um find them relatable. It makes them understand, you know why they are doing what they are doing. So it's always good to make them as human as possible. So the next trait I'll be sharing with you is to give your antagonist boundaries. All right, always give them boundaries where they can act and where they cannot act. That makes it more profound. Okay, even the most evil of all antagonists is likely to have a line they don't cross. Most of the villains are those that, like, the best villains are those that, like, they have strong values that they don't want to oppose. They have strong principles that they don't want to go against. Maybe they are totally fine with killing innocents, but not if they are defenseless and can't stand for themselves. All right. So, or maybe they're more than willing to steal from people, but they never intentionally injure someone. Maybe they are willing to take justice into their own hands and avenge their family, but they won't kill anyone, not directly stand in their way. This is another that ties in with your antagonist, still being human, just like in all other characters, and there's still a bit of morality in them. All right. So always give them boundaries. This will solidify your antagonist story. This will solidify what they do. This will really, really give them more depth. This will give them more meaning. This will give them more reason. This will give them more reason to want to do whatever it is that keeps them going. Okay, so always set boundaries for them. And whenever they break those boundaries, make sure they react to the breaking of those boundaries, because it's very, very important. People need to see things like that on screen, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, at least they care about their values and their principles and whatever it is. So it makes them very, very strong. It makes them, um, more in depth, character wise, and it makes people kind of secretly root for them. All right. So the fifth one is give your character a backstory. Always give them a backstory. It depends though. If you're writing a short film, always always give them a backstory, regardless of if it's a short film or a feature film or a series. Always give your villain a backstory. Okay. Um, the backstory makes your audience root for them. It makes your audience love them. It makes your audience find them relatable. It makes people want to talk about it. Okay. This is another one I touched in the motivation for any person or character, good or bad. Their past has shaped who they are now. So backstory is crucial to knowing a character and their current personality and motivation. And that's just as important for an antagonist as for a protagonist. All right. So the moral of this entire video is that your antagonist is just as important, if not more important, than any of your other characters in the film, which includes your protagonist. So develop your protagonist, your antagonist. Spend time developing your antagonist. Like I took 2 weeks, 2 weeks thinking about the protagonist in my next short film. All right. I took 2 full weeks because I wanted the strongest protagonist possible for my antagonist, because the better your I mean the strongest antagonist possible for my protagonist, because the better your antagonist, the better your protagonist will be. All right. So the more profound, the more detailed, the more value oriented, the more backstory your antagonist has, the better human being, you know, your protagonist will be. Um well, I have a couple of more that I would like to share with you. One more that I'll share with you is give your antagonist a history with the protagonist. Let them have a moment where they've connected before. Um, if you look at the movie, for example, Collateral Damage, Collateral Damage. I don't even know why that came on my mind, but yeah, if you remember at the beginning of the film, Collateral Damage is about a fireman, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger was the main character. He was the protagonist. And he was a fireman, and the villain was a terrorist guy who attacked the city. So while he was in the city, and I was going to get his wife and his kids, and then this police officer rode a police bike. He rode it by Arnold, and Arnold saw him, and Arnold waved at him, sort of. So they both had this communication, they both had this contact, this moment together, and the next thing, 10 minutes, 10 seconds after that, there was a huge explosion, and Arnold's wife and child died in that explosion. And Arnold keeps getting this flashback because he remembers the guy that rode the bike, and he knew that the bike was the bomb device that was used. So they had this moment. This is pretty much something that I'm talking about here, that always give your antagonist a history with the protagonist. It could be a longer one, it could be one that they've known each other from childhood. um I haven't seen this though, but it's The Punisher on Netflix. And I was just going through series of writings about it, and I realized that the villain in The Punisher, was actually I think his brother. And they've known each other, and they kind of change, on each other along the way. There's so many movies like that, whereby brothers, they turn around, become villains. Even in the Bible, look at the story of Cain and Abel. Okay, um, Cain being he's not really the protagonist because he was killed by Abel. Abel being the antagonist, he was Cain's blood brother from birth. And I believe there's also a form of reading that was trying to indicate if they were twins actually, but um, I think some other people believe that Cain was like the older brother. I don't want to go into all those details. That's some theological research, details. I'm not really going into all those details, but yeah, this one isn't actually much of a requirement, but it can be a nice bonus. Okay, if your antagonist and protagonist knew each other in some capacity before the main plot of your story, it can add fun dynamics to their conflict. Did they go to school together? Were they in the same military division? Their relationship then their relationship then will color their relationship now and make things extra interesting. Did they hate each other back then and then only fuel their hatred more? Was one protective of the other and now they don't want to hurt them even though they are on the opposite side of the battle? Did they care about each other and neither of them wants to hurt the other. Again, this is not a requirement, but it can be fun to play with. All right, just something to look into, something that can really, really help your story. All right. Um, yeah, there's so many things. I have so many things that I was planning to share with you guys. But if you have any question, please click below. Let me know. Let me get a thumbs up. Let me know that you're here with me. And also, my channel, I will be talking about so many things, but I would like you guys, I will be um, creating a poll, and I would like to hear your feedback. All right. I would like to hear your feedback and hear exactly what you think about um, what kind of content you guys want to see more on my channel. What kind of activities do you want to see? Because I have tons of content. I have films, I have researches, I have online shows, podcasts. So I would like to know what you guys would like to see more, on my channel. Um, that being said, um, some other trait that I would like to share would be that your antagonist is not just a character, is just more like your main character, if not even more powerful. Okay. And also remember, they have to be rude, mean, they have to be someone who tease the protagonist, generally unlikable, a bully to the protagonist and or others. All right. So an antagonist might be like a necessary evil for your protagonist, like a necessary evil for them to cross. Okay. Antagonist is not a character flaw. Antagonists can have a character act too. They can really have a character act. When you're writing a story, you can give them an arc as well. Um, the antagonist to the antagonist, okay? The protagonist is the antagonist, and this has to do with the motivation and the belief, because they believe in what they do. It's very mandatory for your antagonist to believe in what they do, because when they believe in it, it makes the story more touching, it makes it more powerful, it makes it more relatable, because they strongly believe in whatever it is that they do. So yeah, it's been such a wonderful moment with you guys. I will be coming on live more and more often. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Share your thoughts, share your comment below. If you're new on this channel, I would like to hear from you. I would like you to also subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel. I would also like you to, click the bell button, because that will help me in expanding this channel, and that will also make you get the first notification, whenever I'm going on live or whenever I upload a new video. So please subscribe and click the bell button, and also link up with me on all social media at Dapo Ibrahim TV. That's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, uh, TikTok. I'm all over the place. God help me. But yeah, link up with me on social media. I would like to connect with every single one of you. And if you learned something of value from this video, please, please, please share this video with all of your friends. And I will be seeing you guys in my next video or in my next live stream. Take care and bye bye.